Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome a true principled conservative winner and give him a Wake County Republican Party welcome, Lieutenant Governor.
It's great to be with you, and what a difference a year makes. I can remember last year at the Precinct meeting just over in the arena next door. We had a great crowd, a couple thousand people over there, and everybody getting energized for the campaign. It seems to me, it seems like just yesterday, and here we are a year later doing it again. And I really just have to say this, because I may not get this opportunity again for a while, but thank you. Thank you for what you did, not just for me, but for so many candidates around the state. We did one thing right. We got North Carolina right, and we can be thankful for that. When we started a couple years ago, we started with no name recognition, with no money, with no organization, with really no plan of attack. We knew we were going to get out and work hard. We knew we were going to cross the state many times. Over a 2-year period, we traveled about 250,000 miles across the state. And we went to all 100 counties, and we went to most of them many times. And we ran a positive campaign. And people will tell you this day and age that they're tired of mudslinging, they're tired of dirty politics, and yet it seems to keep winning again and again and again. So people really fall in that trap of feeling like they have to run a dirty campaign to win. Well, we ran for 2 years. We never said a negative word about any of our opponents. We had 4 opponents in a primary, and we had an opponent in the general. Never said a negative word, didn't mention their names in that time, and we won. Ooh, the lights just went. And we won because of grassroots, hard work, effort. And I can tell you that grassroots still pays off. It still wins. So the work you're doing here and the work you're doing in your precincts, getting your precincts organized, means everything to candidates like me. And all the folks that were represented up here in front of the stage, what a great group of candidates, what a great group of political representatives that you have here in Wake County. It's really just awesome. So thank you for what you do, and keep doing it. Continue to do it. We also need to remember really where we are in Wake County. I'm a Wake County resident as well, and if you look through the list of all the representatives in Wake County, just if you look at the state, the House and the Senate alone, you'll find out there's 16 representatives in Wake County. There's 100 counties, there's 170 members there in the House and the Senate, and you have 1/10 of them are right here in Wake County. So the work you do is absolutely critical for the direction that our state heads in the future. So keep up the great work, organize your precincts, do the hard work, because it definitely pays off. So your hard work paid off for us this year, and we hit some milestones. Susan just mentioned a couple of them, but first time in 25 years that we've had a Republican governor. That's been a long time coming in North Carolina, so congratulations on that. The first time... Susan mentioned we've had 5 Republican lieutenant governors in our history, but only 2 since Reconstruction, only 2 since the late 1800s. And so I'm the second since Jim Gardner back in the 80s. So again, long time coming to have a Republican lieutenant governor, certainly against the odds. And it's the first time in history that we've had the executive team, we've had the legislative team, and we've had the judicial team who are all conservative. And so give yourselves a hand for that. Time just kind of running through where we are today, some of the things that are going on, tell you a little bit about Lieutenant Governor, because most people don't know, and tell you a little bit about what we're going to do too. So I'm going to run through this at somewhat of a rapid clip here, but we inherited a mess. Let me just say that. For 25 years, like I said, we haven't had the executive mansion, and the governor gets there and starts to put his secretaries in place, and it's pretty amazing what you uncover in this sea of rocks. There's something under every rock somewhere. And really what you find out is that the inner workings of government are really not working. they're not working the way that you would run your business. They're not working the way that we would put a business together and try to run the state. So that's really the biggest task at hand. You know, we have the legislature that's been running hard, they've been pushing hard for a couple of years. They know how this works from a legislative standpoint. And now we're trying to figure out how to make it work from an executive standpoint. How do the inner workings of government work? And so, you know, what we found is that there's very few business processes in place. Now that really shouldn't surprise you because there's been very few business people in Raleigh running government. So it really shouldn't surprise you, but there are very few business processes. There are very few contract writing stipulations in place for our state government. So there's people out there writing contracts every day for tens of millions of dollars who have never written a contract before. And we don't even know that we're holding the contractees accountable for what they're supposed to provide to the state. So some of these basic things, antiquated technology across the board in the state. Now we're probably 10 to 20 years behind in some areas of technology in government. So things that just haven't been paid attention to. You probably heard about the fire in the server room at the Department of Administration building, and the governor came out and said, you know, we have to do something about this. We have to fix technology. He hired a great new CIO for the state, a guy named Chris Estes, who you would all love. He comes from a consulting business background, so he's bringing a business-minded approach to government in Raleigh, and he's going to really start the process of fixing IT, but this will be long-term solutions. You know, we go into department after department, and we find things like DHHS, and Aldana Voss, the new secretary there, gets there and she wants to communicate with her staff. And she can't communicate. She has 18,000 employees, 18,000. She has a $20 billion budget with B, $20 billion budget. She has no CIO, she has no COO, she has no budget person in her organization. She has no means to communicate with 6,000 of her employees. Can't even get in touch with them. And so that's just broken and that has to be fixed. Chris Estes took over ITS and he wanted to go out and communicate with his team. Couldn't do it. There's no way to do it. There's no single email system he could send out a message. So he found out that there was a PA system in the building. And so he went to the security team and he said, I hear we have a PA system. I want to talk to my employees. They said, oh, no, you can't do that. That's used for emergencies. He said, I want to talk to my employees. And so he got in and he addressed his employees over the PA system. Well, the next day, the liberal blocs came out and they said, you know what? This guy's so stupid, he doesn't even know how to use technology to communicate with his employees. He had to use an antiquated PA system. And so that's what we're dealing with. That gives you just a little microcosm of the types of things that are going on. We have facilities across the board that are really in disrepair. There's been a study done that said we may have $4 billion with a B of disrepair buildings that need repair in state government. $4 billion worth. So again, years, decades worth of stuff that's just falling apart, and that's going to have to be fixed. This is yours. You know, we're hired to be stewards, aren't we, Marilyn? This is something we're hired to be stewards of your property, and so we have to take care of these things. And so you're going to hear the governor talking about that as well. We have agencies that have never really worked together across platform, and now those agencies are really starting to talk to one another. And I'll mention the secretaries here in a minute, but they're starting to communicate. We heard that the previous governor very rarely ever had a cabinet meeting. Rarely ever met with their secretaries. Our governor is meeting every Monday morning with his secretaries, and they're talking to each other, and they're figuring out how they can be efficient and save time and energy and money across platform. So that's some good stuff that's going on. There are audits, a number of audits that our state auditor, Beth Wood, had done that our previous governor just ignored. So audits, there are financial audits, and then there's efficiency audits, and she would bring these audits in front of the governor, and the governor would just ignore them. So she's a Democrat. Pat McCrory is a governor. One of the first things he did was to go meet with Auditor Wood and sit down and say, what are the problems in government? You know where these problems are, and so they started to address some of those things. And so we inherited this mess. We have a business-minded approach to fixing the mess, and that's going to be a process that's going to be ongoing for a while. So let me just tell you a little bit about Lieutenant Governor, because most people don't know. I saw Tony Gurley. Tony's still here. Tony and I got this question on the campaign trail for a couple years. You know, first question was always, what does the Lieutenant Governor do? And then the second question was, who is the Lieutenant Governor? So nobody knew those two things. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time just putting in the rest of my presentation in a little bit of context for you about what the Lieutenant Governor does. Most people do know that the Lieutenant Governor is kind of second on the executive team. If God forbid anything happened to the governor, then the Lieutenant Governor would become the governor. It's happened 5 times in our state, so it could happen again. Hopefully it wouldn't, but it could. The Lieutenant Governor is the president of the Senate. So one of my duties on a daily basis now is presiding over the daily floor activity of the Senate, making sure that we're following parliamentary procedure, making sure the rules of the Senate are followed, making sure that decorum is kept in the Senate as well. It's actually a great job. You get to listen to the debate on both sides and you hang on every word. And so you really do get to be informed about what's going on in state government. It's also the only position in North Carolina that's both legislative and executive at the same time. So you have a foot in the legislative team and you have a foot on the executive team, and you have to figure out how to balance that. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then you sit by constitution on the State Board of Education. Pretty important role. We've never had a conservative State Board of Education in the history of North Carolina, modern history of North Carolina. And in about 2 months, that will change. So for the first time, that will change. Lieutenant Governor also sits on the North Carolina Board of Community Colleges and the North Carolina Board of Economic Development. So this education, economic development theme, which again I'll wrap up on in just a minute. And I'm a member of the Council of State. So there's the Secretary of State, the Treasurer, the Auditor, the Attorney General, the Commissioners of Labor and Agriculture and Insurance, and so forth. That's the Council of State. We get together once a month and we have a 15-minute meeting to vote on tens of millions of dollars worth of land purchases and leases and that type of stuff. It's the craziest thing you've ever seen. But that's an important duty because there's a lot of money that flows through the state, through the Council of State, and you have to vote on it. And so, again, part of being good stewards of your resources that you send to Raleigh, and that's something that we need to continue to focus on, is transparency in government, making sure that you know where every dime that you send to Raleigh goes, and making sure that that's transparent to you. As I mentioned, the Lieutenant Governor has a foot in the legislative and the executive team. And really what you are as Lieutenant Governor, you're like this island between two rivers. And you have the legislative river that's flowing like rapids, and it's just moving along, and there's a whole lot of pent-up anxiety in the legislative branch. There's a lot of bills coming, and they're coming really fast, and that's really probably what you would like, because they're all bills, things that you would agree with. And then you have the executive team, which is moving at a much slower pace, because every decision, every word that comes out of the governor's mouth, one, it gets printed in the newspaper. Two, it has impacts into all the agencies that he represents, and so he's moving at a much more reasoned pace there. And so these two rivers are going at different paths or at different paces, and the lieutenant governor's in a river between with a foot in both. And so sometimes you have to play peacemaker. Sometimes you're trying to figure out what's going on legislatively so you can talk to both sides and figure out how to navigate those waters. And I mentioned leadership in these, I wanted just to show you who these secretaries are that are in charge of these agencies. I've met with all of them now. One of the things we did at the very beginning was to get out and meet with all the new leadership in Raleigh, and one of them was to meet with the secretaries. And I can tell you that the governor and his transition team did a fabulous job picking these secretaries. Every one of these folks come to the table with a business-minded approach. They all come with a business background, and so they know how to run businesses. Some of them have made great sacrifices to be here. The vast majority of them have given up a lot of money to come make a sacrifice for you and to help run the state. They all come with a customer service attitude. The governor has said, and I said this for 2 years on the campaign trail as well, we are here to serve you. We are public servants. We are the ones that are the servants, not you. It's not the other way around. So we're here to serve you, and that's the mentality that needs to come from Raleigh back to the people of North Carolina. You may have heard the governor say in his State of the State speech, people were getting overcharged on the toll road out here, and every person that got overcharged was personally contacted by DOT to tell them they were sorry and to let them know that they were making up for that. Have you ever heard that in state government before in your life? No, that is the mentality that we're bringing to Raleigh. So what are we doing now? We have really, again, two things going on. On the executive side, we have the discovery phase. It's about figuring out the agencies, about turning over rocks and finding out what's under those rocks. It's about bringing business practices and contract writing practices and putting together sound fiscal budgets, responsible budgets to stop this overspending, to stop the debt that we've been racking up in the state of North Carolina. And on the other side, we have legislation that's really being pushed through, and things like the saying no to the state healthcare exchange, which happened. We have a president who wants to push Obamacare on North Carolina, and if the Supreme Court says it's law, then at that point in time, he's going to have to do it his own way. He's going to have to find his own money. It's not going to come out of your pocketbook to make that happen. The same thing for the Medicare expansion here in the state. You know, the demographics don't work on this. We know the demographics don't work. We don't have any money in the bank. We can't afford the plan that the president is trying to push on us. So we said no to the expansion of Medicare as well. Said, no, Mr. President, we don't want that extra burden because we know in 5 years down the road the entire burden is going to fall on us, and we can't afford to make that happen. So again, we said no to that as well. Also in the process of revamping unemployment insurance. You know, there's a time and place for everything. There's a lot of people out there that are hurting. There's a lot of people that need unemployment, but there's also a line that has to be drawn because the demographics don't work for that either, and the budget doesn't work for that. So putting a sound fiscal plan in place for unemployment so it'll be there long term, so it won't crash and burn in the short term, and it'll be there for the people that really need it. We also eliminated a number of boards and commissions. That's in process as well. That's in committee right now. But there's a lot of useless boards and commissions in Raleigh that were political favors that were appointed for people. And so a lot of those are going away right now too. So there's a lot of good stuff happening there. School choice bills are going to be pushed down the road. You know, we need to make sure that we find a way to break the state government controlled monopoly on education, introduce choice. Control of education back in the hands of the parents so that parents can make the best decisions for their children as to how they need to be educated. So that's coming forward. You're going to see, based on what you're doing now and the reason that you're here, you know, you're going to see some great changes coming up very quickly just about election law across the board, but certainly photo voter ID. Tax reform is on the table. Senator Rucho has come out and stated publicly, as many of us who campaigned for this, saying, you know what, we'd like to eliminate the personal income tax and eliminate the corporate income tax in North Carolina. So that's coming. I don't know how far we'll get this year. We don't have to hit a home run this year. We don't have to score the touchdown this year. But the plan should be to move towards eliminating the personal and corporate income tax in our state, and we will follow the lead of all these other states that have done this, where they are the most economically friendly states in America. Their economies are thriving compared to the rest of the country. So people want to move to where there is no personal and corporate tax. We will see a growth in our economy overnight by making that happen. So you will see tax reform, fair, transparent, balanced tax reform come to North Carolina. We've talked about it for years. It's going to happen this time around. Regulatory reform as well. This is something that started with the last General Assembly. You know, they really pushed hard to do a lot of regulatory reform last time around, and that's just going to continue. Business owners around the state continue to tell us the regulatory burden that you place on us is overwhelming, and so we're going to create a business-friendly North Carolina by both tax reform and regulatory reform. Further education reform has already started. As you heard the governor mention signing into law yesterday a new career track for students, high school students in North Carolina. Say there's a career-ready track and a college-ready track for diplomas in North Carolina. That's a big plus for our state. You know, everybody, as you well know, everybody does not want to get the 4-year college degree. Everybody does not want to go on and get their doctorate or their master's degree. We need a career track for many students who what they end up doing is dropping out of school. If they don't have a pathway to success for them in the short term, they're going to drop out of school. And so we're going to try to break that dropout rate, increase the graduation rate with this career-ready track. So I'll just quickly hit on some of the things that we're working on here. As I mentioned, the Lieutenant Governor sits on the State Board of Education, the Board of Community Colleges, and the Economic Development Board. I've already met with the governor on this, and the Lieutenant Governor chairs what is called the E-Learning Commission. And so we are going to take that E-Learning Commission, really hyper-focus the E-Learning Commission into the virtual learning environment across North Carolina and across a platform that focuses on K-12, the community college, through the university system, making sure they're all communicating in this world of virtual learning. On the economy side, be focusing on international trade, making sure that the products we make here in North Carolina, we're shipping them out to other places. We need to increase our trade. We need to make things again in North Carolina. Advanced manufacturing in our state. Advanced manufacturing is not coming back to North Carolina the same way it went away. It's a very different manufacturing world today. Advanced manufacturing is very different. I'll hit on that in just a second. And then the third thing is branding of our state. We need a brand, and this is the example I use with people all the time. How many times you drive up and down the interstate and see on the back of a car a North Carolina license plate, and on that back of their windshield on a North Carolina license plate you see the South Carolina palmetto tree and the moon, which is their state flag. People are saying, I identify with South Carolina, I identify with the beaches of South Carolina, and I like their brand so much I'm willing to put it on my car. That's a sense of pride and a sense of ownership in something that I don't believe we have here in North Carolina right now. And we need to really work on our brand across the board. Who are we? Our state motto is Esse Quam Videre. You've probably all heard that before. It's on our state seal. Esse Quam Videre. It means to be rather than to seem. To be rather than seem. Who are we as North Carolinians? What are we going to be? Not just who are we going to look like, not just the Forbes #1 ranking or the Business Week #1 ranking best place to work when we're ranked 44th in the nation in business tax climate. That's seeming like something that you're really not. We need to decide who we're going to be, build a brand around that, and then go sell it to the world. So that's going to be important as well. And then I have this note up here about employee morale. This is just a little sidebar, but I wanted to share it with you because one of the things that we're doing is we're going out to all the agencies and all the departments, and every other week we're visiting another one. We visited ITS last week, and I went cubicle to cubicle. I went and met with every single employee in ITS, and I just walked up to them and I shook their hand and I said, thank you. Thank you for what you do for North Carolina. Thank you for the investment that you make into our state. Thank you for your job, because I know it's a thankless job, and I just want to say I appreciate what you do. And there were literally people that were crying. They were crying, shedding tears, saying, you know what, nobody's ever told me thank you before. And that's really a shame. It's a new day in government, there's new leadership in government, there's a new management style in government, and we want to reward those employees that are doing a great job. We want to make sure that those that aren't doing a great job either start to do a great job or they move on somewhere else. And we need to make sure that we get the most out of our people in state government, because we need to reward those who are serving us well. And so that's just one of the things that we'll be doing. And then I think we need to set some goals, some big, hairy, audacious goals for North Carolina. I'm kind of a competitor, so I believe in finishing first in a lot of things, and I think we should do this for our state. We need to say, what does it mean to be #1 in education in North Carolina? And set a goal to be the #1 state for education in the country. How about being the #1 place for education in the world? Why can't we compete with Singapore in math? Why can't we compete with all these other countries around the world? We can do that. We have a new school board coming who's going to have a new focus, and we're going to change things in Raleigh. You know as well as I do, we have a great state. We have a great state. Why can't we be #1 in employment? Instead of only being number 44th or 45th or 46th, depending on the ranking you look at, why aren't we #1 in employment? The lowest unemployment in America. We can do that right here in North Carolina by opening up a lot of new markets, opening up the energy market. For one, I have down here, let's be #1 in energy in America as well. Let's have an energy independent North Carolina. That starts by legislation that's going to be pushed through here as well about exploring our natural gas resources and our oil resources off the coast, making sure we're taking care of the resources that we have and using them for North Carolinians, building the tax base in our state, creating tens of thousands of potential jobs right here in North Carolina just by using the God-given resources we have in our state. Let's be #1 in America in energy. And then let's be #1 in efficiency. Let's have the most efficient and transparent government in the country. Why should we not set these goals? These are things that we'll be working on, and so I'm hoping that you will join me in pushing for some of these things. And if you have your own goals that are important to you, let us know, and we'll add those to the list. I wanted just to say this about technology and how rapidly things are moving. When I talk about e-learning and virtual learning in North Carolina, I think it's time to really turn education on its head. We're really operating in many ways in a 20th century platform of education, and the 21st century is well upon us. In 2007, the iPhone didn't even was introduced. 2006, it didn't exist. The iPhone was introduced in 2007. That was just a few years ago. The iPad was introduced in 2010, believe it or not. There's over 500 million of those devices on the street right now. And projections say that by the year 2016, which again, I'll remind you is only 3 years away, 2 billion smart devices a year will be sold. 2 billion a year are going to be sold every year going on starting in 2016. So we're already somewhat behind the curve in the way that we deliver some of our services to our people and even to our students. So there's been a bill that's being pushed through about putting the funding for digital textbooks, allowing schools to use funding for digital textbooks. And so we stopped buying paper and put more of those funds into digital. And it'll save the state tens of millions of dollars, and it'll transform the way some of our students learn. So this is some of the stuff we'll be working on. And as I mentioned, manufacturing is not the same as it was anymore. New high-tech advanced manufacturing jobs are very different. Students are now coming out of school and let's say this. Any of you know we have an apprenticeship program in North Carolina? North Carolina's a few heads shaking. We have an apprenticeship program in North Carolina. It's actually a pretty good program. It's run through the Department of Labor. And students can, in high school, they can be identified for this apprenticeship program. They can go and get an internship with a company for a summer job that they decide, the student decides and the company decides that they want to keep those folks on. They put them through college, so they pay for their community college. They get a degree, their associate's degree. They end up getting a journeyman certificate as well. And then they have a job. And some of these jobs pay $55,000, $60,000 a year, and they have no debt. Compare that to many of our four-year degrees where you'll go through Chapel Hill, you could have $80,000 of debt by the time you graduate and potentially no job on the other side. I'm not saying one is better than the other, I'm just saying this is an option. And so these are options that some of our students need to know about. Good paying jobs with no debt on the other side. Advanced manufacturing is changing the world right now. It's transforming North Carolina. Advanced manufacturing jobs are growing in our state, and we need to continue to push for that. And then we need to remember who we are. You know, we need to remember our foundation. And as you have heard said many times from Justice Newby, as he has quoted the preamble of the North Carolina Constitution, he's also told us that it's a frequent recurrence of fundamental principles that we need to focus on in North Carolina. We need to always get back to our roots. We need to remember who we are and where we came from. We need to remember that our Constitution is just as valid today as the day that it was written. It's still the greatest Constitution in the world, and we need to uphold it and make sure we protect it. We need to continue fighting for our rights. We need to continue fighting for our First Amendment rights. You know, we have an administration that is telling us that religious institutions have to provide services for abortion, and that's not right. You know, we need to fight back against that. We have an administration that's saying they want to take your guns away from you, and that's not right. We need to fight back against that. You know, we have a 10th Amendment as well that's still intact, that's saying everything that the Constitution doesn't expressly say that the federal government should do, that's reserved for the states. And our states need to fight back based on the 10th Amendment. And we also need to remember that we can't be fatalists about any of this stuff. While we probably all believe America's heading in the wrong direction, we can save America. And we're going to do it one state at a time. And North Carolina can be one of those states that helps save America. You know, we have some great governors out there. We have some great governors out there that are really working hard to save this country. And, you know, we have Bobby Jindal, and we have folks like Chris Christie when he kind of gets it right sometimes. And we have Scott Walker in Wisconsin, as Nikki Haley. And you know, so we have these friends and these neighbors and partners that are really working hard to do this. So we can save America, and we're going to do it right here. It's not going to happen from the top down, from Washington down. It's going to happen right here from Wake County. We need to remember that those 50 states are also great innovation laboratories for America. There's no reason that it's a one-size-fits-all approach in America. That's why we have 50 states. Those 50 states are innovation laboratories, and we need to use them as such. We need to learn the best lessons we can from the states that are doing things well and say, we want to adopt that. We need to take the lessons from things that don't work well in states and say, we don't want to have anything to do with that. That's America. That's federalism. That's how it's supposed to work, and that's how it'll work right here in North Carolina. And we need to remember that we're a nation of empowerment, not a nation of entitlement. We need to break the entitlement mentality in America. We need to empower people to take care of themselves. And we need to think for ourselves. You know, this is another thing America was founded on. We need to think for ourselves. We need to break the bondage of political correctness. Political correctness. Political correctness is bad for America. Political correctness stifles dialogue. It stifles debate. It stifles argument. These are things that, again, our country was founded on. We should be able to gather around the table, have very differing views, be able to come to a table and put best ideas out there. You know, this nation was founded and built upon the idea that we as individuals have the freedom to speak and to express and to debate our thoughts and ideas on a daily basis. And so that's what we need to return to. Return political civility to the process and make sure that your ideas are getting out there. Don't let anybody tell you. Don't let anybody squash your ideas. Don't let the left do that to you. They'll do it to you every day in the newspapers. They'll do it to you every day on TV. Don't let them do that to you. Make your voice heard. Continue to stand strong for what is right, for bringing your common sense, free market, liberty-driven ideas to the table to solve America's problems. And then we also need to remember that we are not the answer, that we don't have the answer in and of ourselves. We answer to a higher power. And I'm not going to read the preamble because Justice Newby has read this to you 100 times already. But you know, it is God that we trust, and it is God that we place our trust and our hope in, and we need to rely on God for the salvation of our nation. We really do, and the foundation of our nation. So that is the true foundation that we build things upon, and that's really what is going to save our country. So everybody in this room that's a representative will say that they appreciate your prayers. Continue to pray for us. Public service is a sacrifice, and it is very difficult. And we need your prayers to move forward. So thank you for praying for us. Thank you for working for us. Thank you for donating to us. Thank you for all the work you do. Thank you for the organization you're building right now so that we can build upon what happened in 2010 and in 2012. And 2014 will be stronger. And then 2016 will be even stronger than that. So thank you all. God bless you all. And have a great day.